In the vast expanse of the galaxy, war was nothing new. Civilizations spanning light years had been locked in conflict for millennia, yet each species followed the same unspoken rules, structured, precise, predictable. The Galactic Academy of Strategic Warfare prided itself on these principles, training the best and brightest from dozens of star systems. But today, something unprecedented had occurred. The humans had arrived. They were late to the interstellar stage, only recently gaining recognition as an emerging power, but their reputation spread like wildfire. Deathworlders, they were called. A term used with a mix of awe and horror. Earth, their home planet, was known for its unpredictable weather, volatile geology, and predators that seemed designed to kill. Life on such a planet required adaptation, resilience, and, above all, an acceptance of conflict. Among the professors and students of the Academy, there was a buzz, a palpable tension. The arrival of human students in the War Tactics class had ignited a fire of curiosity. These were beings who came from a world where conflict was woven into their very survival. Yet, what troubled the Academy's teachers wasn't humanity's capacity for violence. It was the casual nature with which they approached it. The Academy's hallways hummed with quiet conversations. Educators from across the galaxy whispered about the humans, curious how they would fit into the rigid, calculated strategies of galactic warfare. Their methods, so chaotic, so unrefined, defied the protocols set by millennia of conflict among the stars. Here, wars were fought with rules. Precision over power. Diplomacy over brute force. Humanity, however, was an anomaly. "I don't understand it," one of the alien teachers, a Ceravarian with deep, azure skin and four slanted eyes, muttered to a colleague. "Their history, it's nothing but conflict. Thousands of years, from tribal battles to global wars, and yet, they treat it as if it's a game." Beside him, a slender Ithian with a ridge of spikes down his neck responded. "A species that thrives on war for so long should not be underestimated. But their methods, crude. Messy. They don't respect the elegance of warfare." The Academy prided itself on producing strategists. War, to them, was an art form, each move a calculated decision designed to minimize loss and maximize gain. Theirs was a symphony of battle, a masterpiece of maneuvering and subtlety. But humans? They charged headfirst, broke rules, and seemed to embrace chaos with an unsettling calm. It wasn't just their tactics, though. It was their attitude. Where most species saw war as a last resort, an unfortunate necessity, humans seemed indifferent. Perhaps that's what unsettled the teachers the most. They spoke of wars that, to them, were mere events in history, detached, almost clinical. The Human-Terran Confederation had only recently established itself among the stars, and yet its warriors carried a reputation for unflinching survivalism. How could a species so new to the galactic scene seem so comfortable with conflict? The mystery deepened. The human students, few in number but unmistakable in presence, walked the Academy's halls with an aura of confidence. They didn't boast, didn't flaunt their abilities, but there was something unnerving in their casual demeanor. It was as though war was not something they feared, but something they understood in a way no other species could. One of the veteran professors, a Xenorian with a crest of flowing tendrils, looked through the profiles of the incoming students. Human names were listed, ordinary by most standards, but the records that followed were anything but. These were not the names of children sent to learn the art of war. These were veterans, men and women who had already seen combat, who had survived battles most species could barely comprehend. They spoke of wars fought on multiple fronts, where survival wasn't just a matter of strategy but of sheer willpower. There was no denying it. The humans were different. And that terrified them. As the War Tactics class was about to begin, the human students filed into the grand amphitheater. Their posture, their quiet confidence, contrasted sharply with the nervous energy of their alien peers. They didn't seem anxious or apprehensive about what was to come. If anything, they looked bored. The alien professors exchanged glances. How could beings from such a volatile world be so dismissive of galactic warfare? They expected the humans to approach this class with a degree of respect, maybe even reverence. Instead, they received looks of mild interest and faint smiles, as though they were about to discuss something mundane. The lead instructor, a towering Xantharian with translucent skin and 4 arms, stepped forward to address the class. His voice boomed through the amphitheater, introducing the curriculum on galactic war strategy. Every species in attendance listened intently, eyes fixed on him, except the humans. The humans leaned back, relaxed, almost as if the instructor's words were unnecessary. As the alien students sat on the edge of their seats, eager to absorb every bit of information, the humans exchanged glances with one another, smirking at something only they understood. The alien professors watched, their discomfort growing. Why were these Deathworlders, whose history was steeped in bloodshed, so indifferent to the concept of war? What did they know that the rest of the galaxy didn't? The mystery of the humans had only deepened, and with it came an unshakable feeling of unease. The first lesson began in the sprawling amphitheater, a cold and pristine environment designed to mirror the structured, orderly nature of galactic warfare. The alien instructor, a veteran strategist known for his precision and methodical approach, stepped forward, his multiple arms gesturing toward a holographic display. A simulated battlefield materialized, a common tactical exercise used to demonstrate proper, efficient strategies for planetary invasion. As the alien students leaned forward with intense focus, the human contingent remained oddly relaxed. They exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable, as if they'd seen it all before. There was an air of indifference about them, something that the alien professors couldn't quite comprehend. The instructor began his presentation, explaining each maneuver in detail, emphasizing the importance of caution, patience, and minimal engagement. Every move had a purpose, nothing was left to chance. It was an impressive display. The battle unfolded with mathematical precision. The alien armies moved like chess pieces, controlled and deliberate, aiming to win the war with minimal losses. The instructor's voice droned on about efficiency, respect for the rules of engagement, and the importance of maintaining honor in combat. To the alien students, it was a masterclass in strategy, a lesson in how to wage war the right way. But then, one of the human students raised a hand, the faintest smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. He gestured toward the holographic battlefield. Why didn't they just drop in behind enemy lines and take out the command center first? That would have ended the whole thing in a day. The room fell silent. The alien students turned toward him, their expressions a mix of confusion and disbelief. The instructor, caught off guard, hesitated for a moment before responding. That would be reckless. Such an approach would lead to unnecessary risk and potentially catastrophic losses. Another human, a woman with a calm, detached demeanor, leaned forward in her seat. Sometimes, a little chaos is more effective than a perfectly planned battle. You spend too much time thinking, and the enemy has already adapted. The alien professor blinked, momentarily lost for words. War is not chaos. It is structure. It is planning. You can't just improvise. The humans exchanged knowing looks, barely suppressing their amusement. To them, it was obvious. War, by its very nature, was unpredictable. No plan survived first contact with the enemy. It was a principle ingrained in their species, a lesson learned over countless battles throughout their brutal history. The alien professor, however, couldn't comprehend this mentality. He continued with his demonstration, insisting on the importance of calculated, precise maneuvers. But the humans couldn't help themselves. With each demonstration, they offered alternative strategies, methods that seemed reckless at first but were based on Earth's long history of warfare. They spoke of daring raids, surprise attacks, and overwhelming force, all strategies that defied the careful, deliberate tactics taught in the academy. The aliens were horrified. One human brought up D-Day, the Allied invasion of Normandy. It wasn't perfect. Hell, it was a mess. But we threw everything we had at the enemy and overwhelmed them through sheer force of will. Sometimes, that's all it takes. Another mentioned guerrilla warfare, used by smaller, outgunned forces throughout human history. You don't always need the bigger army or the better weapons. You just need to hit them where they least expect it. Make them afraid to move, afraid to sleep. That's how you win. The alien students shifted uneasily in their seats. The humans weren't talking about war the way they were taught to understand it. To the aliens, warfare was a formal event, a test of strategy, where the goal was to outmaneuver the opponent while minimizing destruction. But to the humans, war was survival. It was messy, chaotic, and ruthless. It wasn't about honor or strategy. It was about winning by any means necessary. As the human examples continued, the alien teachers grew increasingly uncomfortable. One human described the concept of scorched earth tactics, where entire territories were destroyed to deny the enemy resources. If the enemy can't use it, it's as good as a victory, he said, his tone disturbingly matter-of-fact. For the aliens, this was unthinkable. They couldn't fathom destroying something that could be used later, let alone accepting the collateral damage that came with it. The humans, on the other hand, saw it as just another tool in their arsenal. The professor finally stepped in, trying to regain control of the lesson. These tactics you describe, they are barbaric. There is no need for such extremes. War is a tool, not an end in itself. It must be fought with precision and care. The humans said nothing, but their silence spoke volumes. They had learned long ago that war was rarely precise and never kind. To them, the alien obsession with structure and honor was, at best, naive and, at worst, a recipe for failure. As the lesson came to an end, the alien instructors were left with a deep sense of unease. The humans had fundamentally changed the way they viewed war. What they had once believed to be a controlled, structured process was now revealed to be something far more brutal. And the worst part? The humans didn't seem fazed by any of it. In fact, they seemed almost amused. The lesson had shifted from unsettling to downright disturbing for the alien professors. As the human students shared more of their history and methods, it became painfully clear that these Deathworlders approached war with an unflinching pragmatism that defied everything the Academy stood for. The next demonstration was meant to focus on conflict resolution and minimizing losses. But the humans, once again, turned the lesson on its head. One of the human students, a tall, scarred man with a voice as calm as it was chilling, brought up a strategy that sent waves of discomfort through the room: carpet bombing. He explained it simply, as if discussing a minor logistical problem. When you're fighting an entrenched enemy and need to clear large areas quickly, you level everything. You don't leave them a place to hide. Sure, there are civilian casualties, but it's efficient. The goal is to end the war quickly, not drag it out. The alien students exchanged horrified looks. The alien instructors could barely mask their shock. Collateral damage wasn't a concept they embraced, it was a failure of strategy, a loss of control. But for the humans, it seemed like just another tool in their arsenal. The professor, trying to regain some semblance of order, raised a shaky hand. But, the destruction you're talking about? It's indiscriminate. What about the innocents caught in the crossfire? Entire cities, lives, his voice trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. The human student shrugged. War isn't clean. You end it as fast as you can, with as few resources wasted as possible. If taking out a city saves 100,000 soldiers down the line, that's a trade worth making. The alien professors visibly recoiled. They were used to wars fought under strict codes, with protocols designed to minimize civilian impact, even in the heat of battle. The humans' willingness to accept such devastation as part of their equation was utterly alien to them. It wasn't just their tactics that were horrifying, it was their cold, pragmatic approach to the value of life. Another human chimed in, this time speaking about nuclear deterrence. You want to prevent war? Make it clear that if someone starts one, they won't survive it. The threat of mutually assured destruction keeps everyone in line. The alien students could scarcely believe what they were hearing. The concept of mutually assured destruction, a doctrine where the guarantee of catastrophic retaliation prevented war, was so antithetical to their ways. War wasn't supposed to be a game of total annihilation, it was meant to be a controlled conflict, with losses kept to a minimum. The idea that humans had built entire strategies around the threat of planetary obliteration shook them to their core. Annihilation, to prevent war, one of the alien professors stammered. How can that be justified? That's not peacekeeping. That's the ultimate destruction of everything. Doesn't the mere existence of such weapons increase the risk of catastrophe? A human woman, her voice disturbingly calm, answered. It's simple. As long as everyone knows the cost of starting a war, no one will be stupid enough to start one. It's brutal, sure. But it works. The room felt colder. The humans spoke as if they were describing simple mathematics, not the destruction of entire civilizations. Their solutions to war were born of necessity, forged through centuries of brutal conflict. The aliens, on the other hand, were still grappling with the moral implications. Where they saw honor, the humans saw survival. Where they saw rules, the humans saw obstacles. Another human brought up the concept of a scorched earth strategy, explaining how armies throughout history had denied their enemies resources by burning everything as they retreated, farmland, homes, even entire towns. If you leave nothing for them to use, they either starve or have to retreat. It's not pretty, but it's effective. The alien professors were visibly disturbed now. The idea of systematically destroying everything to deny it to the enemy felt more like cruelty than strategy. One of them, struggling to maintain his composure, asked, "But surely, there must be another way? Something more humane? War is terrible, yes, but it doesn't have to destroy everything in its path." The human students exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. One of them finally spoke, voice steady and resolute. War isn't about being humane. It's about winning. It's about making sure your people survive, no matter the cost. The faster you end it, the fewer people die in the long run. Sometimes, that means doing things others won't. The words hung in the air, heavy and unsettling. The alien professors couldn't fathom the cold logic of it all. To them, war had rules, boundaries, lines that shouldn't be crossed, even in the worst of conflicts. But to the humans, those lines were flexible, bent to the demands of survival. There was a growing tension in the room. It wasn't just the tactics that created the divide, it was the entire worldview. The aliens saw war as an unfortunate but necessary evil, something that should be managed with care and respect. But the humans? They saw it as inevitable, a problem to be solved with the most effective means available, no matter how brutal. The breakdown in communication became more apparent with each passing moment. The alien teachers struggled to understand how a species could so casually embrace tactics that left entire civilizations in ruins. They couldn't comprehend the humans' ability to detach themselves from the moral implications of their methods, viewing war as a simple matter of survival rather than a complex, ritualistic process. One of the alien students finally voiced the question that had been simmering under the surface. How do you live with the destruction you cause? A human responded without hesitation. We live with it because we have to. You don't win wars by following rules. You win by surviving. The alien professors, left speechless, realized that they weren't just facing a different strategy, they were facing a different mindset altogether. And that terrified them. As the tension in the room settled into an uneasy quiet, the alien instructors seemed at a loss. The human students' unshaken acceptance of brutal tactics weighed heavily on the room. For the aliens, it felt like the humans treated war as a cold, emotionless equation, devoid of empathy or remorse. But one human, sensing the growing discomfort and misunderstanding, stood and addressed the entire class. "You're all asking yourselves why we don't flinch, why we talk about war like it's nothing," he began, his voice steady but carrying the weight of centuries of history. "It's not because we enjoy it. It's because we've lived it for so long that it's become a part of us." He paused, looking at the bewildered faces of his alien peers. "You all come from peaceful, structured civilizations. You've had the luxury of preparing for war in a controlled environment. But Earth? Earth never gave us that luxury. The room grew quieter, the air thick with anticipation. Even the alien teachers were leaning forward now, trying to understand what drove this species to such extremes. The human continued, his tone hard but not without a hint of sorrow. Earth is a death world. Everything there is trying to kill you, the weather, the wildlife, even the diseases. We didn't get to evolve in a place of peace. We evolved in a constant fight for survival. Our ancestors had to deal with predators that could rip them apart, natural disasters that wiped out entire cities, and diseases that killed millions. Every time we built something, nature or war took it away. So we adapted. We fought. It wasn't about glory or honor. It was about living long enough to see the next sunrise. The aliens listened in stunned silence as he described the endless conflicts of human history. Our species has been at war for as long as we've existed. Empires rose and fell. Civilizations were built on the bones of those that came before. And through it all, we learned that you do whatever it takes to survive. There's no room for hesitation when your life, or the lives of your people, are on the line. He paused again, this time letting his words sink in. War, for us, isn't a choice. It's a necessity. We didn't ask for it, but we had no choice but to become good at it. Because if we weren't, we wouldn't be here today. One of the alien teachers, his voice trembling, asked, "But the things you've described, the devastation, the loss, doesn't it haunt you?" The human gave a small, bitter smile. Of course it does. But we don't have the luxury of letting it stop us. Every species here has had its struggles, its wars. But for humans, war was never a singular event. It was a constant. It shaped us. It's why we don't flinch when we talk about strategies that seem cruel to you. It's why we speak about carpet bombing, nuclear deterrence, and scorched earth tactics like they're just tools in a box. Because for us, they are. They're tools that keep us alive. The human's words hung in the air, heavy and unavoidable. The alien students and teachers were silent, no longer horrified by what they'd heard, but deeply troubled by the reality of it. They began to understand that the human approach wasn't born out of cruelty, it was born out of necessity, out of centuries of relentless pressure to survive in a world that seemed intent on wiping them out. Another human spoke up, his voice low but filled with conviction. "We're not monsters. We don't enjoy war. But we know what it takes to win one. And when the stakes are survival, you do what you have to. You learn to shut off the part of you that hesitates. Because hesitation can mean death." One of the alien professors, who had been silent for most of the session, finally spoke. "We thought you were reckless, that you treated war like a game. But now I see it's different. To you, war is inevitable." The first human nodded slowly. "We don't want war. But we know it's coming, sooner or later. That's why we're so casual about it. Because when it happens, we'll be ready. We've always had to be." There was a long, uncomfortable silence. The alien students looked at the humans with a new understanding, though it did little to ease their discomfort. They had never considered war in this way. For them, it had always been a choice, a strategic decision made after every other option was exhausted. But for the humans, war was not a last resort. It was a given. The alien instructors exchanged glances, their horror giving way to a reluctant acknowledgement. The humans were not barbaric. They were not indifferent. They were survivors. And in a galaxy filled with threats, that made them both invaluable and terrifying. One of the professors stood, addressing the human students with a sense of solemnity. "We may never fully understand your approach. But we can see now that it's not born out of cruelty. You've been shaped by a world that demanded this of you. And in a way, that makes you uniquely suited for the challenges we face in this galaxy." The humans said nothing, their expressions betraying no emotion. They knew what the aliens were coming to realize. They had always known. As the lesson neared its end, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The aliens now saw the humans in a different light. They were no longer just students, no longer just Deathworlders. They were a species forged in the fires of conflict, tempered by the harshest trials the galaxy could imagine. They were survivors. And while the aliens still found their methods terrifying, they could no longer deny that humanity had something the rest of them did not, a ruthless efficiency, born from a history where survival was never guaranteed. The final lesson of the war tactics course was designed to be the ultimate test. A large-scale galactic simulation, where every species in the Academy would show what they had learned. The simulation wasn't just an exercise, it was meant to reflect the reality of warfare in the galaxy, where careful planning and precise execution often determined victory. The human students stood silently at their stations, waiting for the signal. Across the room, the alien students prepared their meticulously crafted strategies. Each species had spent countless hours honing their tactics, refining their approach to the simulated conflict. But the humans? They seemed strangely calm, almost indifferent to the weight of the moment. As the simulation began, the alien forces deployed their fleets in perfect formation. Their strategies were elegant, their movements precise. Every maneuver adhered to the galactic protocols for warfare, ensuring minimal losses while maximizing control. For the alien teachers, it was a display of everything they had worked to instill in their students: order, discipline, and calculated execution. But the humans weren't playing by the same rules. Almost immediately, the human students broke from the standard protocols. Instead of engaging in cautious, measured skirmishes, they launched a full frontal assault, overwhelming their opponents with sheer force. Their ships moved unpredictably, disregarding conventional tactics and hitting enemy fleets from unexpected angles. They seemed chaotic, reckless. But their results were undeniable. Within moments, entire sections of the alien forces were decimated. The human students pushed forward relentlessly, exploiting every weakness, showing no hesitation. They targeted supply lines, crippled command centers, and sowed confusion among their enemies. It wasn't a war, it was a blitz. The aliens had no time to react, no time to adjust. Every move they made was countered with ruthless efficiency. The alien teachers watched in stunned silence. They had seen human tactics before, but never on this scale. What the humans were doing wasn't just unconventional, it was brutal. And yet, the longer they observed, the more they began to understand. The lead alien teacher, his face pale with shock, muttered to himself, "This isn't strategy, this is annihilation." But as the simulation continued, it became clear that the humans were not fighting without purpose. Their tactics, as chaotic as they seemed, had a method. Every action was designed to overwhelm, to dismantle, to break the enemy's will. Where other species sought to win through control and order, the humans embraced unpredictability and devastation. They didn't just want to win, they wanted to ensure their enemies had no chance to fight back. One of the alien instructors, still trying to grasp what was happening, whispered to his colleague, "They don't just defeat the enemy, they destroy everything in their path." How can they be so cold? The lead teacher, who had been watching more closely than the rest, shook his head. "No, it's not cold. It's survival. They aren't fighting for territory or honor, they're fighting like it's their only chance to live. It's not about rules for them. It's about making sure they're the last ones standing." As the simulation neared its conclusion, the human students had completely routed the enemy forces. The alien students, despite their carefully planned strategies, were left in disarray. Their fleets were crippled, their defenses shattered. In contrast, the human forces had taken heavy losses, but their victory was absolute. The alien teachers gathered in stunned silence, processing what they had just witnessed. The humans had turned the simulation into a slaughter, but it wasn't out of malice or cruelty. It was simply how they had learned to survive. In the aftermath, the lead alien teacher addressed the human students, his voice steady but carrying an unmistakable weight. "You've proven yourselves today. But I have to ask, do you ever hesitate? Do you ever wonder if there's another way?" One of the humans, a young woman who had led much of the attack, looked him in the eye and replied without a trace of hesitation. "We do what we have to. War isn't about finding another way. It's about making sure there's a future." If that means breaking the rules, then we break them. Because in the end, it's not about who fights the cleanest. It's about who survives. The alien teacher nodded slowly, a reluctant respect creeping into his expression. He finally understood what the humans had been trying to show all along. They weren't reckless, nor were they devoid of honor. They were survivors. Their tactics, however brutal, were born from a need to ensure their species' future. In a galaxy where threats lurked around every corner, the humans' approach, as terrifying as it was, might just be the most effective. As the human students prepared to leave, the lead alien teacher stopped them one last time. You may not fight like the rest of us, but perhaps, that's what the galaxy needs. Maybe it's not the strongest who survive, after all. Maybe it's those who aren't bound by the rules. The human leader turned, offering a slight nod. In war, rules are just another obstacle. You win by whatever means necessary. We've learned that the hard way. With that, the humans departed, leaving behind a room full of alien teachers who now viewed them in a completely different light. There was still fear, still a sense of unease about what humanity was capable of. But there was also something else, something deeper. Admiration. The final realization hit the lead teacher as he watched the human students walk away. The galaxy had always feared them, these Deathworlders from Earth. But now, after seeing what they could do, after witnessing their relentless determination and refusal to follow the rules, he understood something crucial. They were not just the galaxy's greatest fear. They were its greatest hope. Because when the time came, and the galaxy faced its darkest hour, it wouldn't be the species who followed the rules that would save them. It would be the ones who didn't give a damn about them.